and this is Will Work for Food, the New Possibilities Hour. We have some great news. You might have seen it posted on LinkedIn or other social media in terms of the generosity of this group and others like us, all of us. Jeff, what is the total so far? Where are we now with donations?
Jane, thank you so much for the opportunity. Our audiences have been so generous in the mediation, arbitration, litigation, legal communities, and contributing to food banks in honor of our great speakers. Our running total so far, of which we're aware, is $101,635.
Wow.
An unbelievable showing of generosity. Thank you all so much. And special acknowledgement to Natalie for organizing this whole project in the first place.
That's fantastic. That's just so thrilling. And that's more than 1 million meals that have been served or made available to people. So food banks around the world, I just love it that this is such a global legal community that's doing this. Thank you. For today's program, we're very honored to have with us Simon Boehme. Simon works at the intersection of dispute resolution and legal innovation. In fact, in our conversation this week, he started talking blockchain. I said, wow, okay. Usually it's the banking and the tech industry only, so this intersection of dispute resolution and legal innovation seems to be coming into that world as well. As a tech entrepreneur and mediator, Simon has founded and advised multiple legal tech companies, along with writing and teaching online dispute resolution for the past 10 years. He's a former vice president of partnerships for Legaler and president of Legaler Aid. He recently served on the State Bar of California's Access Through Innovation of Legal Services Task Force. Previously, Simon was head of operations and chief of staff, trust and safety at Lime. Simon also co-founded Disputely, formerly Legal Win. Earlier, he founded Magnify, a contract company summarizing terms and conditions of popular websites. Needless to say, he's a serial entrepreneur, right? Simon advises multiple legal tech companies and the Legal Tech Fund. Simon was a member of the Accord Project Dispute Resolution Working Group, appointed by the Obama administration to serve on the U.S. Department of Education's National Advisory Committee for Institutional Quality and Integrity. His background goes on and on. You can find out a lot more about Simon on his website, simonboehme.com. Simon's food bank today, as he will tell you more about, is the Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes. So, Simon, the floor is yours. Why don't you tell us first about your food bank and then jump on in.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jean. And it's such an honor to be here and such an important cause. There's two reasons why I picked Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes. One, and both of them are very dear to my heart. My actual interest of conflict resolution came from my hometown of Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is sandwiched between Chicago and Detroit, if you're a geography nerd like me. In high school, I actually brought President Obama to my high school commencement. It was the first time the office of the president delivered a high school commencement, which will date me that I graduated from high school in 2010. I thought I was this really cool guy in high school, and a few other people did as well, but I had no idea when I was leading this effort how to bring people to a common cause. And that led to my lifelong passion of conflict resolution that I discovered at Cornell in the ILR school. And giving back to Kalamazoo, but also I unfortunately lost my grandfather to COVID. He really taught me public service by delivering bagels and delivering food to people all throughout Michigan. And Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes was one of the organizations we always gave back to. So it's very dear to my heart. I am very grateful for all of you guys giving back to that. I have been in online dispute resolution for the past 10 years. So to me, this moment in history is quite bittersweet. It's exciting that so many people are now resolving disputes online virtually. But I could not imagine such a horrific experience among so much death and economic anxiety and depression that has kind of forced us all to adopt to this world. So I don't want my excitement about online dispute resolution in the middle of a once in a lifetime pandemic to forget the reason why we're here. I don't have a deck. I want to make this as interactive as possible. I'm going to be sharing my screen throughout the entire presentation. Hopefully this is value add where you can learn different things about how you can interact with what I believe will be the future of negotiations, particularly the big topic areas I hope to go over is blockchain, particularly Claros. So I'm going to walk you through how you can participate as a jurist, as a jury member on the blockchain, and how you can participate in this new world. We can talk about NFTs and some of the disputes that are coming with that, what is so hot. We can talk about what I believe is the best example of artificial intelligence and dispute resolution is what Sam Doherty is doing up in Canada. We'll talk a little bit about virtual reality. We'll also talk about court technology, how this is the moment to shine. And then a few extra things. I don't know if you guys know, but Ice-T has a show called The Mediator. I was in talks with their producer before they started airing. They're going to be releasing an app. That will be interesting to see how that turns out. And then if some of you follow Bob Ambrogi and others, is New Air ADR. And if we have time, we can talk about medical debt disputes as well. I've authorized Jean to interrupt me if something comes up in the chat. I'll be sharing my screen, so I won't be checking the chat as religiously as I typically would. If people feel comfortable enough unmuting, or Jean, feel free. If we don't want to have the Wild West, we can just have Jean be that person. Go ahead, Jean.
As I say, Jeff will be taking the questions today, so just put them in the chat and we will be good.
So Jeff will be in charge, and we'll go from there. Again, please stop me, ask as many questions as possible. If something is useful or if you want me to move on, feel free to go on. I would also love to hear what you all think. Through a lot of these conversations and discussions, I learn about things and learn about emerging trends in ODR. After spending 10 years in this space, I'm just over the moon that we can do this virtually, and people have stopped asking me, well, you can't necessarily read body language via Zoom, which I think after this pandemic, a lot of people now realize that you can. If there's no questions or anything else to start, I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to jump right into it. So as many of you may know, Coinbase recently had a direct listing, and Coinbase is one of the easiest ways for particularly US citizens and citizens in other countries to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are various different kinds of cryptos, and a fair amount of people view them as investment strategies. And I'm not here to offer any sort of financial investment. I'm here to talk about two very specific companies that resolve disputes on Ethereum. Ethereum is a cryptocurrency, is a type of token that is similar to Bitcoin, which I'm sure you've read about in the news, that is worth $50,000 per Bitcoin, or whatever it is now, $60,000 Bitcoin. But why it's important to at least have a basic framework or a basic understanding of this cryptocurrency is there are going to be those disputes that are the typical ones, the commercial or ownership. I was involved in a multi-billion-dollar crypto ownership equity dispute where some well-known investors in this cryptocurrency claimed that CEO had shorted them and was valuing it at a different price. There's those kinds of disputes where they would go to Jeff and they would say, hey, we need help resolving this between investor versus owner versus employee that is related to a cryptocurrency. But what I'm talking about is there are actual disputes that exist in this ether, as some would call it, in this new reality. And right now, a lot of them exist in three different buckets: escrow disputes, verification use case, and Oracle. Escrow is probably the most common kind of case that you would have inside of on the blockchain. not in kind of these ownership or investor type of disputes that, could eventually be settled in court. These escrow disputes could be, well, was the certain action performed? Was the code written wrong that did not release a certain amount of tokens or a certain amount of X, Y, and Z? And Claros is one of the companies that can do that. And we're going to walk through exactly how you can participate in the Claros ecosystem. One of the first things you're going to want to do is probably get a Coinbase account, and you're going to want to buy some Ethereum. So it logged me out here. So just log back into Coinbase, and you can buy Ethereum. Maybe buy $100, whatever you feel comfortable with. You can buy Ethereum. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to send it to a wallet. Now, if you guys can see my screen up here, this is MetaMask, which you'll want to create an account. So you'll want to create two different accounts. You'll create your Coinbase account and your MetaMask account. This MetaMask account is going to allow you to send money and to exchange the Ethereum tokens into Claros tokens, which is Claros is what we're eventually building up to. So let's say you buy, I have $46 in some random token. I can send this $46 to my MetaMask. So you copy the clipboard up here. Here's the address account, and I'm going to send it to this account. So I'm going to just copy and paste right here. And that is my MetaMask wallet. And it's always important that you copy and paste it when you're doing this kind of crypto exchanges, because one letter off, the capitalization is off, can make you lose your money. So again, be very cautious about this. And of course, I'm happy to put my email in the chat if you run into any problems, and we can try to help troubleshoot this. I think it's really important people have a basic understanding of what this is like. So you'll want to make sure you select the Ethereum coin, or if you're sending it on Bitcoin, and then the money eventually sends up into your MetaMask account. So see, here are some previous tokens that I used to have as well. Sending money from your Coinbase account to your MetaMask account will only take a little bit of time. You're then going to want to go to Uniswap. I know this is going to be a lot of steps, but it's not that many steps. But if you're taking notes, and maybe I can come up with a deck and send it out to everyone later after this. But you're then going to want to convert from Ethereum into Claros. So I'm going to type this right here. So PNK. So I have, as you can see, I have, 0.009 Ethereum or whatever. So, 0.1 Ethereum is, one Ethereum is worth $2,000. You can convert the value of this Ethereum into Claros, and then you press swap. Eventually, that money is going to appear right here, and you're going to have a certain number of Claros tokens, or PNK. So right here, I have 1,318 valued at $230 of Claros tokens right here. The next step you're going to do is you're going to go to court.claros.io, and this is really where the magic happens. And so if I've lost you in between from Coinbase to MetaMask to Uniswap, I apologize, but this is really where a lot of the magic happens, where you can join different courts. And this is where you can be a jury member, or this is where you can participate in different kinds of disputes. So the general purpose court, this is, most of the cases first make it right here. Video production. This court is for disputes on video production created through agreements in Claros escrow. So again, here's an example of it. Freelancer did not complete the video project as agreed on in court. The agreements, stated video should be 1 minute, but it was only 59 seconds as well. So if you're selected as a jury member, first of all, you need to put a certain number of Claros tokens into the system in order to be selected, but then you're also compensated for participating as a jury member, as someone who can help to resolve these disputes on the blockchain, on Ethereum. So for your vote, in terms of, one side was right, one side or the other side was right, you get 0.1 Ethereum. So at least today's value, that would, maybe be about $200 for that. Oftentimes these disputes don't take that much time. It's kind of just read what they've submitted. Jurisdiction, one question that may come up, why would a dispute go through Claros? So for example, a lot of the tokens outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, some of these smaller tokens have written Claros into their systems that these kind of interactions, like the video production, or there's an English language one, grammar and tech logic, so you use poor grammar and things like that. Claros is designed to keep these disputes, while they do seem small and they seem low dollar amount, on the blockchain, so that you don't have to retain a, for example, many people on this call, get on the mediation schedule that may be 3 to 6 months down the road, or pay $1,000 an hour for a mediation service. Keeping it all online and keeping it all within this system, this ecosystem, allows for the dispute to be resolved more efficiently, without necessarily losing the speed and the thoughtfulness that goes into it. Because when you are a member of Claros and you own tokens, that means and signals to the community that you're a part of that community.
Oh, excuse me, Simon. Let
Yes.
me ask you, what are the stakes of a few questions. What are the stakes of the disputes that go through this system? Are these binding results, like in a binding arbitration? And in a court system, you have due process, right? And part of due process would be the ability to uh, have voir dire on juries and help to have a role in picking who the jurors are. What are the ways those play out in this system?
Sure. So because, well, so this is very early days. This is the new frontier. If you guys all create a Coinbase account and a MetaMask account, I hope you tell your grandchildren or your kids how cool you are, because you're really on the cutting edge right here. In terms of the due process, and Jeff, I'm glad you jumped in and cut me off if I'm still not answering the question, because I want to answer this the best I can. At least in this first version of Claros. So this is the first version. They're about to roll out a second version with this. Within the contract and the partnerships that Claros has, the companies and the other blockchain tokens that agree to use Claros's service acknowledge that this is kind of the one and done shop, and the one and done process for dispute resolution to resolve some of these cases. The actual amount of money can range from hundreds of thousands of dollars to maybe just $100. But when you're looking at dispute resolution systems, and particularly as it pertains to systems that are driven by technologists, due process, is taking a back seat to more of the crowdsourcing, democratization, kind of this neoliberal approach to how disputes can be resolved in a decentralized world.
So are these binding results, Simon, as in an arbitration?
For depending on the court that they use, generally speaking, yes, these would be binding.
So in California and in other places as well, to different degrees, arbitrators need to make certain disclosures, exhaustive disclosures in California, as to prior relationships with the parties, all kinds of things.
Of course,
And
right.
if those disclosures are not properly made before the arbitration award is subject to attack,
Right.
and courts may not enforce them. How does that work its way out in the system?
Sure. So when looking at the classical definition of what an arbitration is, and the disputes that are resolved as, Jeff being the arbitrator, or Gene being the arbitrator, the kind of disputes that are created on the blockchain in its current form do not necessarily abide by that. And it's not necessarily requiring the same kind of procedure. Oftentimes, because blockchain, again, is new and it is rapidly developing, it's not, I'd encourage people to think and change their perspective a little bit differently. It's more about a yes or no. There needs to be new terms created by conflict resolution professionals like us that arbitration is probably not the right process or the right term for resolving these disputes. It's because of blockchain that is a system written by code, and that the code can't figure out if yes or no, the video was or was not a minute and 30 seconds long. The computer doesn't have the code doesn't have the capability of figuring it out. I would argue that's not necessarily an arbitration. It's just a figuring out, is the video 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is a yes or no vote. So when, and I think even taking a step back, one way that I view the world is, how does new technology create disputes? How does new technology resolve those disputes? A lot of these disputes are just very basic, bare bones, and are not the same kind of conflicts that require mediation briefs, require looking at California code and things like that. These are truly new kinds of issues that a computer code can't figure out. So in the rare circumstance the code can't figure it out, humans acting as jury members on Claros need to step in and not automate the process, but kind of take a step back and help to recalibrate the system so they know what's right and what's wrong. I think one of the most interesting disputes that Claros had recently was who won the election. A computer, Trump versus Biden. For example, the computer code could not, especially on Ethereum, could not necessarily figure out if Trump or Biden won. So of course, humans need to step in and verify who actually won that election. And through crowdsourcing, enough people obviously and told the truth that Biden had won. So I hope that kind of answers your question, is that totally get the arbitration process and disclosure and all of those rules. But in this blockchain space, we're seeing the technology and the code actually create new disputes in a non-traditional sense.
Well, Simon, I'm still not clear. I don't mean to take up too much time.
Sure.
But here, example, freelancer did not complete the video project as agreed, was too short. So presumably, if it was the right length, the buyer has to pay the producer or designer of the video the contract fee. And if it was not long enough, you don't have to pay, or perhaps you have to pay less.
Sure.
So if the jury here on Claro says, yes, it was long enough, it met the specifications, you have to pay the fee, then the person who produced the video, what do they do with that? Do they take it to the sheriff to levy execution the way one would do with a jury verdict and a judgment in a court proceeding?
So the contract, and I'm glad, Jeff, you keep asking this, because I want to make sure people understand it. And the contract is the computer code. So it's not a legal document, first off. So in the contract, it's computer code, it is written. And oftentimes on blockchain, all of these contracts are self-executing. So for example, I sent Jeff, this video on the blockchain, but the technology, again, is not capable of understanding how long the video was and if it met what was supposed to be in that computer code as well. So in the code, in the computer code that is written on the blockchain or within the contract, you can, if you have a Claros provision or a clause in it that says once Claros has issued a decision, then Claros kind of acts as that sheriff, or Claros acts on the decision by the jury. But in terms of these next steps of, appealing the dispute to the, Supreme Court of Ethereum, that's just not how it operates. And so Amy Schmitz, who I'm sure a fair amount of you know, if she hasn't spoken on Will Work for Food, she's really the leading academic expert at the University of Missouri School of Law. And I can try to send out some additional articles on this as well that may make it easier to explain it. I think one of the best ways to understand blockchain and why I think it's so important is to get your hands dirty and start to participate in some of these things where you can start to interact, and you can, when you send yourself money from wallet to wallet, some of these ideas about what a smart contract is, and that you're not bound by these legal documents that exist in the physical world. You're bound by these contracts that are written by computer engineer nerds and other cool folks who try to create legal code. But what they realize, and what Jeff, I think, is pointing out, is that you can't do that in computer code. Oftentimes you need human interaction. So hopefully one takeaway from this is that in this evolving world of of blockchain and artificial intelligence, is that humans are always going to need to be there. So when people say, oh, Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're off doing their own thing, that's simply not true. Humans, and particularly conflict resolution professionals, we need to assert ourselves in this system to make sure what Jeff is saying, and hopefully I see questions piling in. Hopefully people aren't like, this is completely useless. Need to interact with this system. And our collective expertise can help to provide good guidance and good advice as these systems evolve. Because what I do worry about is in this wild west of blockchain, people are going to get screwed over. Due process is not going to happen. And it's because technologists are often leading this conversation when it should be conflict resolution professionals like us who can play a more active role in it.
Okay, well, before we do the next verse of I fought the law and the law won, go ahead.
Okay, well, I see that we're up to 15 chats or something. I don't know if we want to stop or people
No,
are.
I think let's just go ahead, Simon. I think we'll save them up.
Okay.
And really interested in hearing what you have to say about the technology of it. People are very thirsty for this knowledge.
Great. Well, okay. So I think one thing too is, again, I'm happy to, I'm going to post my email. I think one of the most important things is and I know money, whatever you can put in, just be aware, there are transaction costs for sending money, but consider getting a Coinbase. Uniswap is how you convert your Ethereum into Kleros. And then you go to court.kleros and you can use your MetaMask. See right here is where my thing is, my Kleros tokens, where you can start to interact with that. So of course, here is NFTs. I have no idea what you're about to see. So if anything is inappropriate, I apologize, but NFTs is a very expressive type of art that has gained a lot of notoriety. Foundation.app, which is the website I'm on right now, is probably one of the most popular ones. I can only imagine the kind of disputes where when you have to call up Jeff one of these days and a well-known artist has their IP stolen, what kind of ramifications and what kind of avenues can you pursue to compel a foundation or compel a certain artist to take that down? This is something that is just being written about. And I would start to pay attention to, I think within the blockchain ecosystem, there are a lot of ups and downs, booms and bust cycles. I was there in the 2016 boom when Bitcoin really took off. We're in another boom right now. NFTs, I think, are here to stay, non-fungible tokens, where you can have different kind of artwork. There's going to be a lot of really interesting IP and legal disputes that will not happen on Claros, that will probably involve an actual mediation on Zoom or a potential court date in front of a court in California or Michigan or somewhere else. So I would keep an eye out on this. I want to kind of quickly transition into artificial intelligence. A lot of people, say, oh, it's going to replace our jobs. It's going to replace lawyers. Richard Susskind talks a lot about this. When it comes to online dispute resolution, we're very, very far away from it. MyOpenCourt.org is probably the closest thing to a tool that online dispute resolution, particularly consumers, can use. And it's very bare bones and it's very basic. It answers simple questions like, are you an employee or are you a contractor? It can also help to calculate termination compensation, and then a wage cut tool. So let me just show you how bare bones this is. I am a worker. Are you asking about a current or past job? I'll just ask a current job. How many years have I worked on this? I'll just say 10. What category? Let's say services. Is your job supervised? I'll say no one supervised in my daily tasks. People, the astute lawyers and peace builders probably already can tell which way I'm going to go down. I'll say, can you hire? No, I can't. Who tells you to do the daily masks? I decide. Do you own or rent? No, I don't. Or I'll say yes, most of it, or partially. So again, this is very bare bones artificial intelligence where, and some could say it's almost like a survey monkey, which it is kind of in that format, but it is pulling data from Cornell, University of Queens up in Canada and other places. These tools will develop. And it's my understanding they're also going to come to California, particularly on the contractor side with what Uber is going on. The termination compensation calculator pulls a lot more data, particularly from, I believe, the province of, I think it's Ontario, where they pull a lot of previous cases that are public, and they're able to help folks go through that termination compensation calculator. So that, again, is something to keep an eye on. Artificial intelligence will continue to evolve. We use it in our emails every day. If you're on Gmail and you use auto complete, which I use quite frequently, and sometimes it gets it and sometimes it doesn't. AI is going to be an eventual creep into the way that we interact in our lives. Building an AI mediator is still quite a ways away. So I think it's important to kind of have that reality check that AI is already infiltrating our lives in the way Amazon suggests certain product to us. However, within the online dispute resolution context, look for more instances of this. How can AI tools help a mediator determine where that real zone of negotiation is? Those kinds of tools are going to be more useful as well. I think, mediate.com, what Colin is doing, Crick, and others, those real trailblazers in the space are going to come out with those tools that will help you not take over your mediation practice for a very long time. I think virtual reality, there's kind of always this perennial question within dispute resolution. What's the percentage of folks or percentage of dispute resolution that is purely training and education versus people who actually resolve disputes? I would argue 80% of dispute resolution is more focused on training and getting the next generation going, whereas potentially 20% are folks who are actually involved in working with parties. Virtual reality, when you look at Striver, which is a Los Angeles-based enterprise employment VR training solution, VR it should be, and hopefully will be soon, used for more training and educational purposes in mediation training, arbitration training, peace building. Virtual reality, in terms of for other cases and in actual cases, I think we're still a little ways away. What I do think VR can be used for is for if people cannot travel or people do not wish to travel. And for example, there's a large IP dispute or there's this large piece of machinery that needs to be inspected by the arbitration panel to see if truly company X did rip it off company Y. Virtual reality can be used to bring in evidence, or if this large piece of machinery, or particularly in construction cases, if there is some element of the dispute where that visual aid would be useful, that is where VR could be, and I would argue should be, used? Are we all going to plug into our, our Facebook, what is it? Not Opus.
Oculus.
Oculus, exactly. Oculus. Jeff, I don't know if you have one, but they're incredible technology. If you want to get a taste for what it's like, the Oculus 2 is really unreal. Again, I would look out to see how VR can be used for training. And, if you are a trainer and you really want to try to get ahead of the curve and reach more folks, I think not only training them on the VR set would be novel and interesting, but also providing basic skills to how you would choose a VR system, what kind of tools you would use. Of course, those tools are very limited, but I would look for, and I think what we can expect, especially with Striver and other VR training tools, is really going to explode. I'll stop right here unless I can keep going.
Sure, keep
Okay.
going.
Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
And this is obviously coming to no surprise as anyone, court technology and ODR. This is really the moment to shine. So Maryland has recently released a statewide ODR RFP. Maryland will probably follow suit after Michigan, New York. There are a few other RFPs in the pipelines from a few other states that are going to put an asynchronous tool, particularly for small claims and family matters, entirely online, which I think this is long overdue. This is in a similar vein to what's happening in courts. It's also what's happening with Aaron Levine's Hello Divorce. So one of Hello Divorce is kind of the motto is if you can meet your partner on, this is not their partner, this or their motto. This is more my thought on it. If you can meet your partner online, why can't you divorce them online? And Hello Divorce will become the nationwide, I believe, the nationwide premier provider of resolving your disputes, divorces online. They've recently rolled out a mediation package where I believe for about $700, you can have an actual mediator involved. And I am going to put a plug in here. If you are looking for cases and to become a mediator with Hello Divorce, please let me know. They are actively looking and always looking for mediators. So again, this is a growing area where you're going to be able to sit in the guest bedroom and mediate disputes with Aaron, who is an incredible legal tech founder. And mediation will be very important for that company to be successful. They're working with A to J Tech, and they're in California, Utah, Colorado. I think they're expanding to Texas. So keep an eye on Hello Divorce and particularly their mediation package. And again, if you want to get into it, let me know. So there's going to be those private avenues to how you can resolve your divorce. There's going to be the courts. There's going to be with what's happening in Michigan with the Chief Justice, who has really been such a trailblazer in this online dispute resolution world, and obviously British Columbia, which has been around for quite some time and really been leading example. We're going to start to see a lot more funding for the courts in the most $1.9 trillion handout for passed by Congress. And it's going to be a very exciting time for courts and online dispute resolution, which is long overdue. The second is I'll quickly say this and we'll stop for questions. I feel like I've been talking at you and I want to have more of a discussion is medical dispute. So I'm starting and helping to work on some of these issues where in the most recent bill passed by Congress, they've actually permitted billing disputes to be handled via arbitration. So we're not exactly clear how that's going to shake out, but particularly when you have balanced bills, more PE firms, more hedge funds are buying up medical practices and hospitals here in the United States. And when consumers are stuck with this balanced bill, which could be $25,000, $100,000, whatever it may be, insurance carriers are not wanting to deal with it. So there's a ripe opportunity for how can we negotiate with medical providers? How can we provide more resolution and a more efficient solution potentially by using arbitration to handle these medical bills and keep people out of medical debt. At least 60 million Americans have some form of medical debt, whether it's a payment plan or it's on their credit card or going through bankruptcy. So keep an eye on that. That is going to be right for online dispute resolution. And then Paul Embley at NCSC, he was the first one who raised this to me back in January. This is going to be a really hot issue, particularly as these PE hedge funds are starting to sweep in and kind of screw over consumers. So another twist in this, which I recently discovered, is that in that arbitration, the consumer can actually represent him or herself, which creates a whole nother range of issues. So I think the CFPB is going to provide some clarity around this. And it's important that we have the right tools to help people navigate that process. That was a lot that I fit in there. I hope everyone didn't fall asleep. I really am such a nerd about technology and where it intersects with dispute resolution. And I appreciate your patience. And I hope if you learned anything is that maybe you can email me and we can get a virtual coffee, or we can meet up at a conference, and you don't think I'm absolutely crazy. But I think it's important to be exposed to this, to be aware of this, where the future is going, and where I see emerging trends in dispute resolution. And there are so many within the realms of a traditional mediation or a traditional arbitration. But with this new technology, there's going to be new ways that hopefully we can expand the pie and we can get more business for all of us. These new technologies doesn't mean that someone is going to be absorbing all these disputes. I think if we can collectively work together, we can all be prosperous and be involved in creating a better type of dispute resolution. I will also point out New Era ADR is a new service where if you are looking to increase your capacity for cases, I would suggest you reach out to them and join their panel of arbitration and mediation. New Era ADR is kind of a dual marketplace where they have a marketplace of arbitrators, mediators, and then they will hopefully have cases coming in. So that company just launched this week.
Yeah, Simon, is that neweraadr.com? Is that what that would be?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so a couple of questions that are popping up with some frequency in the chat. One, if people really, so we got some questions like, what is a blockchain? And you may want to talk just briefly for those of us who are baby boomers or otherwise unsophisticated in blockchain. Give us a little ABC about it, please. And also, if people want a basic information, is there a book or two or a website or two or a place where people can go to get a basic orientation to all this if they're really starting from square one?
Sure. I think one of the in terms of books and resources, I can send a list to Jean, or Jean, I don't know if there's interaction with audiences after the talk, but I can type a few things quickly in the chat if that's just easier. I think one of the easiest ones, if you want to stay on top of online dispute resolution, is odr.info. It's a blog run by Colin Rule and Chitsu and a lot of Ethan Cash, a lot of probably familiar names in the space.
Simon, if you want to just say them, I'll just type them real quickly while you're.
Okay. Yeah, I may need to think or two about some of them, but odr.info.info is probably one of the best ones. You can check out my website, simonboehme.com, and I have a Medium blog post where I try to keep people up to date with that, keep people up to date with what I view are emerging trends. I'm also on Twitter where I retweet or I pump out a lot of this kind of information. In terms of a book about, so I would follow Amy Schmitz at the University of Missouri School of Law if you're really interested in this smart contract, kind of blockchain, artificial intelligence. And Colin Rule, of course. I mean, Colin Rule is really the father of ODR.
How does Professor Schmitz spell her name?
SCHMITZ, Amy Schmitz, at University.
Which law school is she at?
Missouri School of Law.
Missouri. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and Colin Rule, that's with one L, Colin, Rule. And then I think Chris Draper at Trokt, Trokt, has been doing a lot of really interesting work in this space for some time, and Dan Rainey. And of course, hopefully soon I'll be reciting some of your old names one of these days. So in terms of blockchain, we can also send out an explainer video, but it's essentially computer code sending hashes and sending codes to one another, where in exchange for, I think one of the most classic examples is, especially when you look at the potential for supply chain, is Boeing sends United a box of spare parts. Currently, United has no idea what's in that box. It could be for the 737 Max. It could be for the 787, all these different parts. If you were to put these pieces on the blockchain and you were to put a little QR code on them and scan them, and as soon as United received that box, the computer code would automatically say, hey, all the pieces are here for this Max airplane we need fixed. Or the box would arrive and United would, and the computer code would say, holy smokes, we're missing this one little nut and bolt that is absolutely essential for critical. And the money that is held in escrow wouldn't be released, for example, to Boeing until all of the pieces showed up. A lot of this, Angie Raymond at the University of Indiana is working on this in the transportation logistics space, where they're coming up with real world solutions to how can we make sure when a box is placed on Jeff's house or Jean's house, and you scan that code and you store it on the blockchain, there's always that proof of work. There's that proof that it's there, and there's always going to be that history. And sometimes these are public blockchains, so this can be useful for looking at who's buying Bitcoin right now. It's my understanding of a large sum of addresses. So again, addresses are people who own the wallet, where you can send it from one person to another, are citizens of China. And what does that mean? What does that mean for a different kind of global geopolitical implications when a large sum of people who are pumping the Bitcoin price are from China? And that can be evident when you have a public blockchain, when all of the transactions are public. And the astute listener and legal scholar would know that creates a whole nother litany of issues. These public versus private blockchains and interactions have different implications that can be useful in different use cases.
So Simon, give us, most people on the line, I think, do mediation and arbitration work. There's some lawyers, litigation lawyers, and other lawyers on the line, but I think mainly it's ADR professionals. Give us a little career advice if we want to get some cases and make some money. How do you hang out a virtual shingle in this world? And what do you need to do to succeed?
Yeah, right. Well, so I think one of the most important things is to continue your online virtual practice. I think, so many people are going to be tempted to go back to in person. I personally can't wait to go in person. I'm one shot away from being fully vaccinated on May 3rd, and I can't freaking wait. And you should continue to, of course, do in person and do what the parties wish. I think ADR professionals that maintain an in-person and a robust virtual practice are going to always be head and heels above anyone who just does in person. Continue to stay up to date with Zoom. Zoom is going to evolve. Zoom has huge competition with Microsoft Teams. As a mediator, I don't use, Microsoft Teams. When I was creating the first ODR platform in San Francisco for landlord-tenant disputes, we only use Zoom. But so many people have Microsoft Teams with Office 365. Baby boomers may win this fight, much against my will. So I would definitely make sure you have good knowledge of Microsoft Teams if you don't already, along with Zoom. Although my preference is always Zoom for these kinds of disputes. I think having a basic understanding and a basic read a few articles about Bitcoin. I see, comments about if it's fake money or not. Yeah, I don't know. It probably is. It's just computer code. I don't really have opinions about, one way or another. And again, I'm offering no financial advice. Let me be very clear. But there is a lot of money in cryptocurrency. There is over $1 trillion. The market cap is very large. And there are friends in San Francisco who, if you met them, you could not believe they're worth millions of dollars. My friend sold a $7 million image of a little pixel guy smoking a cigar. A very good friend of mine. He sold this NFT for $7 million because he just bought it 2 or 3 years earlier. So he was already a few times a millionaire, made over a few times because of the company he started. But there is money to be made in this, and there's going to be a lot of money that's lost because you are in the wrong tokens and things like that. I think if you're able to say you have an elementary understanding, much like cannabis, which is becoming a very specialized niche within resolving disputes, and arbitration, obviously and rightfully so, should probably be the right mechanism, because these cases can't go to federal court, and arbitration still protects a lot of the confidentiality and people who don't want to be associated with cannabis cases. Crypto is very much that same way. A lot of the people you'll meet in this crypto space, in blockchain and Bitcoin, like this neoliberal libertarian kind of worldview. Whether or not you agree with it, I'm not saying I do, but they are generally big fans of arbitration and mediation and these private methods of resolving disputes. So second piece of advice would be to continue to stay abreast and have a basic understanding of what they're talking about. And I think third is to just kind of get your hands wet and, buy maybe a little Ethereum. You follow a few interesting people on Twitter who do this. I'm on LinkedIn. I hibernated my account because I'm trying to be less. I'm not trying to not be on social media as much, but I'm on Twitter, and follow some people, or there may be some mastermind groups for this.
So, Simon, if you want to meet the right people, is there a virtual Starbucks where they hang out, or a bar association, or
well, maybe I don't know
how
if
do
you're
you
trying
meet
to.
the movers and the shakers in this field?
Yeah, well, I don't. Are you trying to start a new ABA dispute resolution section? I think
We'll talk about that offline, Simon.
Okay, all right. Well, I think I would. Chris Draper and Amy Schmitz run the ABA dispute resolution tech subcommittee. I think that's every Wednesday. I think it's maybe this upcoming Wednesday. If you can make it, that's great. At least just email Chris and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about this. I do think it's important that everyone on this call, U.S. citizen or not, or if you're overseas, wherever, email Chris and say you want to get involved with the standards white paper, because the ABA will be releasing an online dispute resolution standards paper that will be important for people on this call. So get involved in that process, and get involved. And I'll drop my email in the chat too.
Okay, and Chris, I'm sorry, Chris's last name was?
Chris Draper.
Chris Draper. And
so feel free to just email me and I can put you in touch with, I sent Mary Beth White a direct message. I'll send this to everyone. Thank you. This is my email. It's just simon.boehme@gmail.com. Feel free to email me, and we can set up coffee or whatever. But it's a really great growing field. And if there's ways we can work together, please let me know.
Well, Simon, I have a very strong sense that the 40-some people who are listening to this conversation and those who will be viewing it on videotape are going to get online with the Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes as soon as they're done. That's KZOOLF.org, because I know I will, and I believe we're all very appreciative of all the knowledge that you have so generously shared with us today. We are the beneficiaries, and I hope that Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes is the worthy beneficiary of our appreciation and generosity in return. That's what it's all about. So Simon, go ahead.
I just want to say, Phyllis, it's always good to see you on these calls. She's absolutely right. ICODR, definitely check that check that out as well. That's icodr.org as well. And yes, thank you so much for donating to Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes. Our local community can certainly use it. A fun fact, if you have received the Pfizer vaccine, it is produced by this community. So we do have the manufacturing plant for Pfizer right outside the Kalamazoo area. So I have a lot of other fun Kalamazoo facts, like we used to be known as the Celery City, Taxi City. We made taxis for New York City back in the day. But thanks again, Jeff, and thanks, Jean.
Well, it's
Thank you so much.
a toast to Kalamazoo and a toast to you, Simon. Thank you so much. Jean, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Simon. I mean, this truly is a real eye-opener on the future of negotiations, and that's just fantastic. It's just amazing. So we'll all have to do our research into it and be there. Thank you all, and keep donating. Thank you.
Thank you so much.